Okay, Carda, Currently 2 session proceedings. First of all, Wall and Faulty, Calic, Rov Galer Shaw, Quick or O'Cod, Specialta, Starul, and Shaw, enough. It's O'Cod, Specialta, Comora, Milline Gates, a Shadiug, Blian, Sar Tartuk in our Stara, Blian in a Kui, Fairrugs Manana here in the Mock, Contrid, our son the Hearn, August, Cartoon Breakers of Gualdo, Guil, Navs Blockers are going in there in Ish. Inov, Talan, Olivu Content to bring August Lishna Parshti, August like Yakin as a skull, Big Beganin, Dramiukt, Star, Dramiukt, Kjol, Conan Law, Special to Show, a Kirlura. For me, brought Specialta, August Proclamation Specialta on Rainy Dakish, Conan Law Show, a Kirlura. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're very welcome here today. I'm delighted to see you all here braving the elements. We were hoping that the forecast was so good this week. We were promised sunshine, but it's slightly colder than we expected. However, we won't keep you too long. We're glad you wrapped up. We will have about 15 minutes of history first before we go into our drama and Kjol. We'll start off with just a review of history. Just begin in 1 year. There was a lot of history attached to it. Some history going back to history attached to locally here, the Battle of Kinsale, which O'Sullivan Bear was involved in. The British came after that with the Flight of Earls, and after the Flight of Earls really was, I suppose, a successful plantation in Ireland, especially north of Ireland and all over Ireland. And it wasn't for the penal laws kept the Irish poor and powerless really for a century before rebellion started again. And we just mentioned then some of our rebellions and some of our leaders, like Robert Emmet, Wolfe Tone, the Young Irelanders who rebelled. Their rebellions were squashed and quelled easily really by the British forces, but they still fought on. The Irish never gave up the thought or the dream of independence. And we go on to our political leaders also, such as Isaac Butt and Charles Stewart Parnell, Daniel O'Connell, as they fought for home rule for Ireland. We will just discuss, the children will give us a bit on it. And of course the Gaelic League, which was hugely important. Dar Donga Duksuk, Douglas Hyde, Riche, Sarubber, our son on Tonga, Hawalt, August, and Shane Hussig on GAA, the Michael Cusack, and we have one of the greatest amateur, if not the greatest amateur organisation in the world at the moment. Started back then when the Gaelic League was founded at the start of the 20th century. Also, of course, Kjol was a major part of it. Kjol, Oraniucht, and we have some of that too today. I'm glad that Eki here with me also, and he will lead the children in some pieces of Kjol. So we go from there. It's a bit of Dramiucht, the actual 1916 and the important day itself, and we will have a little Dramiucht on the taking of the GPO and how the rebel leaders took it over, but unfortunately eventually at the end of the week had to give in to superior numbers of British forces.
Vanity, vanity, be it martial, be it Shinam, be it Kana, be it Spree, Lala Padre, vanity, vanity, be it martial, be it Shinam, be it Kana, be it Spree.
That Ireland had become suppressed and was forced to bow to a British king and queen. By this time, Ireland had been successively planted by British settlers. The last great stand of the Irish chieftains at the Battle of Kinsale in 1601 ended in defeat of the Irish and their Spanish allies. Our own O'Sullivan Bear was one of those chieftains. O'Sullivan's troops were forced back to Beara by the British soldiers and defeated at Dunboy. Donald Cowan O'Sullivan and what was left of his clan took the long walk to Leitrim to find safety with his friend O'Rourke. The last two great Irish leaders, Hugh O'Neill and Red Hugh O'Donnell of Ulster, were forced to flee the country in what became known as the Flight of Earls.
Irish culture and way of life, as the old Gaelic system was finally broken. As the Gaelic aristocracy fled to continental Europe, they left behind a power vacuum that the English eagerly filled. Over the next 200 years, Ireland and especially Ulster was successfully planted with British landlords. Apart from rebellions by Owen Rua O'Neill in Ulster, there was little done to stop the march of the English. Heavy punishments were inflicted on anyone that opposed the British. The Hellart Connacht was this famous expression associated with Oliver Cromwell as he unleashed his reign of terror. Irish farmers were thrown off their land and replaced by Protestant landlords. By the 18th century, 95% of the Irish land was owned by Protestant or Presbyterian landlords. Though 90% of the population remained Catholic, penal laws kept Catholics poor and powerless. In the 19th century, however, the country saw a change in attitudes. Many now, inspired by liberation in the USA and France, longed for freedom from oppression. Some of our earliest leaders were in fact Protestant. We will now learn about some of our most famous leaders and rebellions that throughout the 19th century paved the way for the inspirational rising of 1916.
Robert Emmet was an Irish nationalist, Republican, an orator and a rebel leader. He organised a rebellion in 1803. It was not well planned and it was a complete failure. Emmet was captured soon afterwards. His speech from the dock has gone down in history. It finished with the famous line, "When my country takes her place among the nations of the world, then and only then may my epitaph be written." He was hanged in Thomas Street in Dublin on the 20th of September 1803.
Theobald Wolfe Tone was a Protestant lawyer who was born in Dublin. He believed in equality for all, regardless of religion. He had seen how the people of France and America had demanded and achieved freedom through revolution. Wolfe Tone wanted equality and freedom for Catholics and Protestants. His aim was that Ireland would be a republic completely independent of Britain. The United Irishmen. In 1791, Wolfe Tone, along with some Belfast Presbyterians, set up a group called the United Irishmen. Their aim was to unite Ireland and free it from Britain. They tried to do this peacefully at first, but then decided to use force. They asked France for help. On Christmas Day, 1796, Wolfe Tone and a French fleet tried to land at Bantry Bay. However, bad weather stopped them from landing and the rebellion was a disaster. Other attempts at rebellion in Wexford, Ulster and Connacht also failed. Wolfe Tone was taken prisoner and died in prison in Dublin. The United Irishmen were made illegal and anyone suspected of being a member was hanged or flogged.
The most important man in Ireland in the first half of the 19th century. He was born into a wealthy family in Cahermore, County Kerry, but was fostered by his uncle. This was very common at the time. He was educated in a hedge school and later in a school in Cork. He was sent to France to finish his education and later became a lawyer. O'Connell was in France during the French Revolution, but he did not agree with violence. He hoped to win freedom for Catholics by peaceful means. This was called Catholic emancipation. He was a great orator and he held monster meetings around the country, educating people on their rights and promoting Catholic emancipation. Through pressure from O'Connell's movement in fear of further rebellion from young Irelanders, the Prime Minister granted Catholic emancipation in 1829. O'Connell then, along with other Irish MPs, take his seat in London. He became known as the Liberator. Home Rule. Isaac Buss and Charles Stewart Parnell. Isaac Buss was born in Donegal. He believed that Ireland should have its own parliament to control Irish affairs, and that Britain should continue to control foreign affairs. He set up the Home Rule League to try and make this happen. By the late 1870s, Home Rulers had the support of 50 MPs in Westminster, but Parliament is not giving Ireland attention. Some Irish members began to obstruct the work of the Parliament by making long speeches that went on for hours. They did this to draw attention to Irish affairs. One man that did this was called Charles Stewart Parnell. He was seen as a hero in Ireland. The Lands League, Michael Davitt. Charles Stewart Parnell, John Devoy and Michael Davitt fought for the 3Fs. Fair rent. They wanted to stop the landlords charging whatever they wanted as rent. Free sale. They wanted someone who was leaving the land to be able to sell the lease to a new person. Fixity of tenure. This meant that tenants would not be threatened with eviction. The Land League got people to work together. They advised people to boycott anyone who rented land or someone else was evicted. In 1880, the Home Rule Party won 63 seats in the general election. In 1881, the Prime Minister, William Gladstone, brought in a Land Act granting the 3Fs.
The Young Irelanders. A group of Catholic and Protestant men set up an organisation called the Young Irelanders. They too wanted an end with the Union with Britain. They supported Daniel O'Connell and published his speeches in their newspaper, The Nation. They organised a rebellion in Ballingarry, County Tipperary in 1848. It failed too. Some of the members, including John Mitchell, Charles Gavin Duffy and Thomas Francis Magar, were arrested and transported to Tasmania, an island off the coast of Australia.
The Fenians and the IRB. After the famine, many Irish immigrants living in America, Australia and Britain were very bitter towards Britain. The Irish in America blamed Britain for the famine. In 1858, two men who had been involved in the Ballingarry Rebellion founded the Fenians, named after the Fena. They are also known as the Irish Republican Brotherhood, or the IRB. One of the men was John O'Mahony, who founded the Fenians in the USA. The other man was James Stephens, who founded the IRB in Dublin. James Stephens had been greatly influenced by the French Revolution. The aim of the Fenians and the IRB was to establish an independent Irish Republic. Its members were mostly labourers, small farmers, teachers, shop assistants and soldiers. Their rebellions were easily defeated and many were arrested and given long jail sentences.
Ireland around 1900. During the 19th century, many young people immigrated from Ireland. Our native language, music, literature and games began to weaken. But at the end of the 19th century, people became interested in the Irish language, customs and games again. Michael Cusack from County Clare set up the Gaelic Athletic Association in 1884 to encourage young people to play Irish games like football, hurling, camogie and handball. Ever since the famine, fewer people had been learning to speak Irish. The national schools did not teach Irish. Gaelic League. Douglas Hyde, the son of a Protestant rector from Roscommon, was a fluent Irish speaker. He believed that the native language was very important. He founded the Gaelic League in Dublin with a man called Owen MacNeill. They wanted to help people to speak Irish and practice Irish customs. Teachers travelled around the country on their bicycles to teach the people. Irish ceilidhs and fesna became very popular. Books were published in Irish. By 1908, Ireland had more than 600 branches of the Gaelic League. In 1897, they got St. Patrick's Day made into a public holiday.
Dublin lockout. there were 25,000 workers locked out. Connolly founded the Irish Citizens Army to protect the workers because there were clashes between the strikers and the police. And after 5 months, the workers left the union and went back to work. They kind of had to because they were starving. And Larkin immigrated to America, and Connolly began then. He had already started the Irish Citizens Army, which joined up with the IRB, and Connolly began to plan an armed rebellion to get justice for the workers, and that was the start, really, coming up towards 1916, of the Irish forces arming themselves. And we have the arrival of arms then from the Asgard arriving with arms, and also the Odd came. Unfortunately, the Odd was intercepted. But so that's coming up to 1916, which will start now. So.
When the First World War broke out, many Irishmen joined the British Army. Most did so to earn a wage to support their families. Unrest grew greater in Ireland, however, and political reform was proving extremely slow, if not impossible. Many believed that taking up arms and fighting the British was the only option left. Many of the Irish volunteers, like James Connolly, Thomas Clarke, Eamon de Valera and Padraig Pearse, thought the war gave Ireland a chance to break free from British rule. Guns and ammunition were smuggled into Ireland to arm the rebels. The Osgard, captained by Erskine Childers, arrived into Howth in July 1914, laden with 900 rifles and 29,000 rounds of ammunition. Secret Irish Republican Brotherhood meetings were held to plan a rebellion. Here we have James Connolly, Thomas Clarke, Padraig Pearse and Joseph Plunkett at a meeting some days before the rebellion.
Country. Most of the British officers will be at the racing at Ferryhouse Easter weekend. We'll go for them. We need more weapons. Our country friends have no guns. Pikes and shovels won't beat the British.
Roger Casement is on his way from Germany with a huge arsenal. Easter Sunday is our day. I've spoken to Owen MacNeil. He's organising the troops to come from all over the country to join us. We'll meet again on Saturday to finalise plans.
Union Jack and put up that.
Hooray!
Okay, guns down now then. You walk over. Now we've Padraig Pearse.
Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations, from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army, having patiently perfected her discipline
having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself. She now seizes that moment, and supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying on the first of her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. The Irish Republic is entitled to, and hereby claims, the allegiance of every Irishman and Irishwoman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and of all its parts, cherishing all of the children of the nation equally, and oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government, which have divided a minority from the majority in the past. In this supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called.
Made up of about 800 Irish volunteers, 200 men from the Irish Citizen Army and 200 women from the Command Naban during the week. Around 400 more volunteers joined them. Padraig Pearse read the proclamation. The British flag was removed from the roof of the GPO. The flag of the Irish Republic and the Irish tricolour were flown instead. That day, most fighting took place at the South Dublin Union. Commandant Eamon Cant was in charge of the rebels there. Tuesday, 25th of April, British reinforcements arrived overnight from Belfast and the Curragh County Kildare. By morning, they had brought machine guns to Trinity College and to the Shelburne Hotel overlooking St. Stephen's Green. The rebels who were in trenches in St. Stephen's Green came under fire from the Shelburne Hotel and had to retreat to the College of Surgeons nearby. Wednesday, 26th of April. The GPO is now coming under very heavy fire from machine guns. Liberty Hall was shelled, but had been empty since Monday. There was intense fighting around the forecourt, but it remained in rebels' hands. British soldiers who had arrived in Dunleer by boat came under fire from 17 rebels at Mount Street Bridge, and 234 of them were killed or wounded. 5 rebels died there. This is the bloodiest battle of the entire week. Thursday, 27th of April. Cathal Brewer, commander of the rebels in the South Dublin Union, was seriously wounded. There was a little action at Jacob and Bowlands. The main fighting was at the GPO, where James Connolly was shot in the shoulder and later in the ankle. Friday the 28th of April. The GPO came under heavy attack. By evening it was on fire. The rebels had to break through a number of walls to escape from the GPO and get to other buildings in Warren Street. It was becoming clear that they could not out much longer. The rebels were trapped and outnumbered. By now the British forces had risen to more than 16,000. Saturday, 29th of April. One family tried to escape the fighting in Moore Street. They were shot down even though they were carrying a white flag. When Padraig Pearse saw this, he decided that the rebels should surrender and avoid further bloodshed. Some of the other leaders wanted to continue the fight, although much of the city centre had been destroyed. Nurse Elizabeth O'Farrell was sent to meet General Lowe, who was in charge of the British forces, to agree a ceasefire. She was asked to return and to bring Padraig Pearse with her to General Lowe. This was the official surrender of the Easter Rising.
Send me Padre Pierce.
There are many women activists in Ireland 100 years ago. On the 2nd of April 1914, Cumnaán na Ban was established to fight for women's rights and Ireland's freedom. Thousands of women joined this organisation and they were active during Easter 1916. They were hard-working and secretive, but were sometimes forgotten.
Countess Constance Markievicz was born in London in 1868 to a wealthy family. She came to Dublin and enjoyed painting, tea parties and theatre. She later became interested in politics and joined the nationalist party, Sinn Féin. Constance became aware of the huge gap between the rich and the poor. In 1913, she organised a soup kitchen in Dublin to feed the families of poor workers who were on strike. In 1916, she fought near St. Stephen's Green in Dublin and was later sentenced to death. However, because she was a woman, she was not executed, but was sentenced to life prison instead. She was released from prison in 1917. She died in 1927 at the age of 59.
Margaret Skinner was the teacher and a member of the Cumnaán na Ban. She was born in England, but her father was from Monaghan. Her good friend, Countess Markievicz, asked her to smuggle bomb-making equipment to Ireland during the preparation for the Rising on Easter Monday 1960. Margaret took up the position as a sniper on the roof of the College of Surgeons. She was an excellent, smart woman. 2 days later, she was shot 3 times while attempting to burn down nearby buildings. She remembered finding Susan hospital, not because of the bullet wounds, but because the nurses had to cut her out of her Cumnaán na Ban uniform. Elizabeth O'Farrell was born in Dublin. She was a nurse and spent Easter week in the GPO. She cared for James Connolly when he was wounded. Elizabeth delivered the surrender note to General Lowe on Saturday, 29 April 1916, 6 days after the Rising began. She carried several messages to let people fighting in other parts of the city know about the surrender. She spent time in jail after the Rising.
Children of the Rising. Many children were killed or injured during Easter week. Some were caught in a crossfire when they were looting in order to bring food and firewood home to the tenants. Some were killed while playing, or in their prams, or even inside their own homes. Others died because, even at a young age, they went out to fight for Ireland. Messenger boy, Sean Healy, aged 15. When Sean Healy was 13 years of age, he trained as a plumber with his father. That same year, he also joined Fianna Éireann, a military organisation for young boys. On Tuesday, he reported to Commandant Thomas MacDonagh. Hours later, Sean was asked to deliver an urgent message to commanding officer at Fitzborough Bridge, warning that an ambush was planned for that location. On his journey, Sean called to see his mother to assure her that he was safe. Shortly afterwards, young Sean was shot dead.
John Foster. John Foster lived in Stony Batter in Dublin. In 1916, he was just 2 years old. On Easter Monday, his mother, Catherine, was pushing her pram with John in it. She did not know that the Easter rising had just started. When John's mother was near the centre of Dublin, she heard some gunfire. She was caught in a gun battle between the Irish rebels and the British soldiers. A bullet accidentally hit little John. His mother grabbed him from the pram and ran quickly to a nearby hospital. It was too late. John was dead. Little John Foster was buried in Glasnevin Cemetery.
After the rising in Dublin caused mixed feelings amongst the people. Many were angry that their city was so badly damaged. Some thought the rebels were crazy thugs that had caused huge waste of life. The rebel leaders were sentenced to death at Kilmainham jail. Thomas Clark, IRB secretary, born in England to Irish parents, was a shopkeeper and a long-time activist. He was the oldest man to be executed that week. Padraig Pearse, Commander-in-Chief, and his brother Willie. Padraig was a teacher, a barrister, and a writer, a poet. He wrote this poem for his mother the night before he died.
I do not grudge them, Lord, I do not grudge. My 2 strong sons that I have seen go out, to break their strength and die. Slain a few, in bloody protest for a glorious day. They shall be spoken of among their people. The generations shall remember them, and call them blessed. But I will speak their names to my own heart, in the long nights, the little names that were familiar once, round my dead heart. Lord, thou art hard on mothers, we suffer in their coming and their going, and though I grudge them not, I weary of the long sorrow, and yet I have my joy. My sons were faithful, and they fought. Ready! Aim! Fire!
Sean McDermott, IRB treasurer, was from Leitrim and he was an activist and a journalist.
Ready! Aim! Fire! Oh yeah.
Eamon Kant, director of communications, was from Galway. He was an activist and a musician.
Our national flag. On October 19th last, 2 naval officers of our National Army, Lieutenant Gillian Power and Petite Officer Greg Hamilton, presented us with a copy of the proclamation and our national flag as part of the 1916th century celebrations. The flag will be raised in every school in the country today. Some things we should know about our national flag. The national flag of Ireland is a tricolour of green, white and orange. The flag is twice as wide as it is high. The 3 colours are of equal size, and the green goes next to the flagstaff. The flag was first introduced by Thomas Francis Maher in 1848, who based it on French tricolour. The green represents the older Gaelic tradition, while the orange represents the supporters of William of Orange. The white in the centre signifies a lasting truce between the orange and the green. It was not until the rising of 1916, when it was raised above the General Post Office in Dublin, that the tricolour came to be regarded as the national flag. We are obliged to have respect for our flag. The flag should never touch the ground. The flag should be raised at sunrise and lowered at sunset. The flag should never be written on.